Welcome to the many interpretations of Dinopithecus. Dinopithecus was a large primate that inhabited South Africa during the Pliocene into the Pleistocene. It belongs to the Cercopithecidae family and so is very closely related to modern day baboons, just a little bit larger. Oftentimes you'll see these guys reconstructed like a larger baboon. Now, I'm sure that many of you already know this, but there's really not too many depictions that exist out there of this fella. But my philosophy for this series has always been as follows: I shall never deny a guest even the most ridiculous request. What I mean by that is that I think that every single extinct creature should have the chance to get the spotlight, essentially, even if it is just like a little 5 minute long video. Dinopithecus, again, does not have a lot of media depictions. I think there's really only one that exists that is actually a true Dinopithecus, like is actually meant to be a Dinopithecus. The rest are kind of like, yeah, they're probably partly inspired. Who knows? So that's pretty much what this list is going to be. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Now, I wanted to start off with this one. It is like a large primate that shows up in a project known as Stone Age. Someone submitted this in the Discord, and I figured I'd include it because I think it has sort of an interesting design. Now, it could very well be inspired from Dinopithecus. It kind of looks like it might be a scaled up baboon with some mandrill traits applied to it, that mostly being in the nasal portion. But it has like some really interesting colors, that those being yellow and greens, and I think that the face is overall very interesting. But because this is incredibly stylized, I don't know if I have too much else to say about it. So we'll go ahead and move on. Next up, we have Jumanji, and this is where we kind of get a little bit more iffy with whether or not this is meant to be a Dinopithecus or not. This is probably just meant to be like a large mandrill. I mean, because it looks like a mandrill in the face. Mandrills, I believe, were once thought to be a type of baboon, but currently they are considered distinct from today's baboons. The rest of the body is actually kind of like mostly in the tail, I think. It's a little bit more similar to a baboon. So I guess it's kind of like a hybrid. So it's a bit iffy. This is probably not meant to be Dinopithecus, but it is like a mandrill that is larger with some baboon traits. So maybe we can just say that it counts on a technicality. I don't know. Either way, I really like the quality of the CGI. Like, I think they did a very good job, especially like, look at that face. Isn't that just a very nicely done and very detailed face right there? Now, you do have some bright reds and blues present in the snout and on the nose. That is something that is present on modern day mandrills as opposed to baboons. But I've noticed that sometimes when folks are reconstructing Dinopithecus, they'll place that trait onto it. Maybe just like a little bit of a stylistic flair, I suppose, making it their own. Yeah, I really like the quality of the CGI. Again, they're probably not meant to be Dinopithecus, but I still think they're fun nonetheless. The same could potentially be said for Hunger Games Catching Fire. There's a bunch of like large mandrills running around. However, I think those are mainly just meant to be mandrills, so we're not going to really count it officially. Next up, the most recent one comes from Primal Season 3. Now, there's a bunch of large primates that, of course, attack the main characters and kidnap Mira. Now, they, of course, again, look a lot more like mandrills as opposed to baboons. But given how Primal is and how they oftentimes stylize their designs, I wouldn't be surprised if it was meant to be an actual Dinopithecus. But jury's still out. We don't know for sure. Either way, they are portrayed as like these huge hulking animals that seem to have like an emphasis on loving meat and climbing trees. Now, Dinopithecus is thought to be an omnivorous animal with more of an emphasis on leaves and fruits, which means that it prioritized eating things that were more so on the herbivory side. However, much like modern day baboons, that doesn't mean that it would pass up the opportunity to eat meat. So yeah, I'm sure that if you went back in time and you observed Dinopithecus in the wild, there would probably be some times where it would hunt an animal that it was, capable of hunting. Early human relatives also lived alongside it, which is kind of an interesting thought. As far as them climbing the trees, it's currently thought that Dinopithecus didn't really spend too much time in the trees, if at all. It is larger than modern day baboons, with the larger individuals potentially reaching up to 77 kilograms or 170 pounds. So it's currently thought that they spent most of their time on the ground, which is honestly a lot more similar to modern day baboons who typically stick to the ground, mostly just going into the trees to sleep at night to avoid predators. But Dinopithecus is not known for much fossil material, so I'm sure that there's still a lot of mystery surrounding this animal. Either way, I really like the way that these guys look, even if they're just meant to be larger mandrills, or maybe another type of primate that I'm unfamiliar with. After that is Cabela's Dangerous Hunts, I believe from 2013. There are baboons in this that attack you, but they're larger baboons. So I guess you can kind of say that this is a Dinopithecus because a lot of modern day reconstructions again make it look like a larger baboon. Given the fact that it's more closely related to modern day baboons, it's likely that it probably looked a little bit more like them. I don't know if there's really too much I can say. It's mostly just a baboon that is on a larger scale. Interesting thing about Dinopithecus is that it is possible it traveled in troops, very similar to modern day baboons. They live mostly in groups. So you would have like these primates that were a little bit larger in size that would have traveled together. And then last, but certainly not least, because this is like the only one that I am absolutely positive is meant to be Dinopithecus, comes from Ark. So yeah, it's got traits that are a lot more like a mandrill. As you can see right here on the face, it certainly has like brighter colors on the snout, a red nose. That's all in all a lot more like a mandrill. It does seem to have like a padded rear end, which is something that is present on modern day baboons. And in this art in particular, I really like the way that the fur is done, and I really like the coloration. It's also oversized. It's shown as just this absolute behemoth of an animal that's just looking down on that poor silhouette of a man. Now they were large, but just not quite that large. You would have had an animal that was a bit more comparable in size to modern day baboons, like the largest of the modern day baboons. I really just like this art though. This art is what really stands out to me when it comes to this depiction. I just think it's very nicely done. And I think that the model in game also looks pretty good. It has all of those traits still present. It's just, generated in the game, I suppose. But yeah, that's like the only one that I know for a fact is meant to be Dinopithecus. And it still does have mandrill traits applied to it. Now, obviously, we don't know if Dinopithecus had a nasal structure like that, given the fact that soft tissue rarely does preserve. So I'm not going to really say that it's like impossible that something like that happened. In fact, it kind of makes the design stand out in a way. So I do like the way that it looks in Arc. I think that they did a fine job with it. And that's pretty much it. That is out of all of those, again, I'm only confident that one is Dinopithecus, which is just it's fun. Maybe we need more Dinopithecus depictions out there. Maybe in another season of Prehistoric Planet, given the fact that these guys lived into the Pleistocene. But yeah, those are the media depictions. What is your favorite depiction or possible depiction of Dinopithecus? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, thank you so much for watching and have an awesome day.